Hi and welcome. I am here with a very special guest today. Today I have psychotherapist Dr. Lisa Sosin. This is my friend Lisle, and I'm so happy that she can join me today for a good chat. Why don't you introduce yourself, Lisle?
Well, MJ, I'm so delighted to be here and thank you for asking me to join you for an interview. Well, I think you did a great job kind of introducing me. I've been a therapist for 38 years and a counselor educator and a mom and married to a wonderful man who's, thank God, I have David. And I just want to say how immensely grateful that I am to you, MJ, and the whole YouTube community that help us feel like, we're on the human spectrum with
Hmm.
all of our differences.
Check it out, check it
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's just going to start with an icebreaker question. So I don't know if you're someone who has a bucket list or has things that they want to achieve unsubconsciously, maybe. I wrote a bucket list one year and I just thought it was interesting that I wrote completely different things from what you would expect on a bucket list. Things like milking a cow or scratching my name into a deserted car, things like were really random. Do you have something that you have ticked off your bucket list that's quite impressive?
That was a good question. I was thinking about it, and I think one of the things that was on my bucket list was running a marathon, and I did, and when I was much younger, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoy running. Running is my way of sticking a lot of stimming into one long period of time. It's really helpful for me.
That's really cool. Okay, so let's just dive right into our questions. My first question for you is when you got your autism diagnosis, what was your immediate reaction?
hmm I would say relief, like I'm not a failure at being a human being, you know? So relief, a lot of grief, because, I got my diagnosis when I was 60. I
Oh,
had
God.
already raised my two boys,
Mm.
right? None of us knew I was autistic. But we kind of knew, and we honored each other a lot in the family, but I think it would have been really good if we all knew. So a lot of grief and then some doubt. Like twice I met with the clinical psychologist who assessed me after I was assessed and got feedback, which is a real privilege that I was able to do here in the States, just to say, like, are you sure? Are you sure that I'm autistic and not just stupid? I, so, and then hopeful. I felt hopeful. Okay, now I understand myself. So those are some of the feelings. And I still, because I was just diagnosed last year, I still kind of recycle through those feelings.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I know I felt a lot of grief and kind of that thinking of you've had to live your whole life not knowing this about yourself and how easier your life would have been had you had this information a lot earlier, especially like at the start of when you started building a family, going into working life. And yeah. So I know that you have a rabbit called Bella, and Bella is very important to you. Can you just tell me a little bit about your relationship with Bella, who Bella is, and also if you feel that you have a special connection with animals in general?
Mhm. I'll start with the second question, which is, do I have a special connection with animals? And I really didn't know how much I related to animals. I feel like I relate better to animals than people sometimes because they're so simple. You don't have to talk, you
Mhm.
could just be. And so Bella really helps me. Bella, my bunny, really helps me in a lot of ways as an autistic person. I call her my therabun because, first of all, she's so soft. She's a mixture between a chinchilla and a rabbit.
Oh, wow.
So she's the softest creature in the whole world, and she's so beautiful. And she likes to cuddle as much as I do. And I'll just lie on the floor with her and start singing, and she starts purring, and she'll let me pet her, and then she starts licking my face, and I'm like, who does this? There's no human being who is as sweet and
Mm.
safe as you are. Plus, I'm a therapist, and where she is where my office is. My office is part of my home, and it always has been since I had kids with a private entrance, and or it's virtual. And she's in here when my clients are with me. And so she's just a comfort to them too. So
Mhm.
it's really neat. It's good all around. I could go on and on, but I'll stop talking about Bella.
I haven't got a pet, but I have been processing maybe getting a cat because I can relate to that, having something soft and comforting that's around just to give you company. I don't think I could handle a dog. I have a fear of dogs, so that doesn't help. But yeah, a cat or a rabbit, something that's gentle and calm and doesn't cause too much fuss. So it's something I'm really interested in and maybe going to one day maybe do.
Hmm. Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah. It's interesting how a lot of autistics actually do relate more to animals than they do humans. And yeah, it's strange that we are of the species of human, yet we are almost more accepted by the gentle creatures that roam the earth.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Next question, when you are in an environment that's quite busy and you can hear lots of conversations around you, what's the things that's going through your mind?
The thing that is going through my mind, MJ, when I am in a big social situation and everybody's talking, my thoughts are, when can I get out of here? When can I go home? When can I put my soft clothes on? When can I do what I want to do and not be engaged in small talk? I just don't find that meaningful. I don't find that meaningful at all. And what will tend to happen to me in a social situation is if anything happens that's good, it's that I'm going to connect with one person
Mhm.
and something meaningful is going to happen. They're going to share their life a little bit and but it's real and it's deep.
Yeah.
That I can get into.
Yeah. Do you find it difficult, kind of, when you are in a room full of lots of people having conversations, to tune in to the person that you're actually talking to?
Well, what's interesting is I have hearing loss
Okay.
and I'm wearing my hearing aids now just to make sure I hear everything you say. But what I do is I don't wear them when I go
Okay.
into social situations. So a lot of that's tuned out. And I've been trying to notice if I have a problem that way with my auditory sense, which is not uncommon for autistic people.
Mhm.
And I just have to explore that a little bit more. If the cacophony of what's going on is impacting my nervous system and making me anxious. Temple Grandin said that when there's a lot of sensory stimulation going on for autistic people, it stimulates the fight and flight response. And doesn't that make sense? That's how I feel in a big social situation, almost like panicky on the inside. There's too much going on. I don't know how to manage it all.
Yeah, I can relate. It's hard because I feel like I look around a room and everyone seems to just manage. I know that neurotypicals have got a filtering brain where they can filter out those noises, and we don't have a filtering brain, so we hear everything almost in the same decibel. But it really boggles me that they have that ability.
I know. I don't have that I hear everything in the same decibel, and I'm not sure, but what I do feel is what you just said. When I'm in a social situation, everybody seems to have an internalized rule book about how to do that,
Yeah,
how you do that, and I don't. I don't know, and that's the case for me in a lot of situations. I just I don't have that understand. Does that make sense? Do you relate to that?
yeah,
Yeah.
so often.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I was so touched by your YouTube, what do you call it? YouTube videos when you talked about your school experience. It's just like, why are humans so mean?
Yeah, literally. And I feel so sad for kids today because obviously when I was at school, when you were at school, it stayed at school. And as soon as you got home, you could close the door to it. At the weekend, you could have a bit of a break. But kids today just do not get a break from any of it because it's constantly online, on social media, on different platforms that everyone is addicted to these days. And I just feel it's even more prevalent because you can hide behind this non-identity on a screen. You can be whoever you want to be, and you can troll someone, and people just think it's acceptable to troll someone else. And I just don't understand that that's the world we live in.
Yeah, yeah,
That kindness isn't someone's first choice.
right, right. Whenever someone's different, it activates something, you
Mm.
know. I remember when I was in, I guess it was seventh grade. I don't know if you had to read this, The Lord of the Rings. I
No.
mean, no, no, don't even The Lord of the Rings. I love The Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Flies.
Oh, yes. It's weird, that one.
That is so, but that is so it. I thought
Yeah.
that captured how cruel kids can be sometimes to anyone who's different.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good analogy and a good the word. Yeah. Sometimes my brain doesn't give me the words I want to say.
Me too. Me too.
Yes.
That
Is
makes
that an
sense.
autistic thing? I think it must be.
Yeah, yeah, I do too.
My next question for you is, do you think autism has hindered or benefited you in your working life?
This was such a great question. I think that there has been a lot of grace for me in my vocational life. When I was 16, I had worked at a camp and I interacted with somebody who was really having a lot of trouble, a little boy. And I came home and I was telling my mom and she was saying, I think you might really make a good psychologist or counselor. And
Yeah.
I don't know, something clicked. And at 16, that became my one thing. I am going to be a psychologist. I'm going to help the people who feel like they don't fit in, the
Mm.
people who are having a hard time in the world. And so I think, MJ, I had a gift in this area because I was born the month my 7-year-old brother, you may have heard me say this before, my 7-year-old brother died of leukemia. I was born that month. And I think that I was sort of, because of what I went through, I became really sensitive to emotional needs, which is interesting as an autistic person. So I'm autistic, but I'm highly sensitive to people's emotional
Mm.
needs. And whatever I was doing, I seemed to be given a lot of grace. Like I was able to do this field really well. And when I became a counselor educator, also, and even though I didn't know I was autistic, somehow I was able to arrange things that I could it's almost like I was able to have disability accommodations without ever, because I would just develop this really close, in tuned relationship with my employer or my colleagues or my dean in the university. And so I did really, really well vocationally. And I'm very, very blessed for that. However, I consider myself that I have two vocations. The other one is being a mother.
Yeah.
And I never had the drive some other women have, like, oh, I just want to be a mother and have kids. And like, I didn't understand that.
Mm.
Not that I didn't understand that other people wanted to, but I didn't understand how to do that.
Okay.
That wasn't in my gifting set. So David and I both felt like we weren't going to have kids. We were going to work with kids and help kids, but we weren't going to have kids. But about 6 years into our marriage, we both felt like we were supposed to have one. And
Okay.
we were like, okay. And we had my first son. And then 6 years later, we felt the same way and we had my second son. And my first son is extremely neurotypical. And when he recently, about 2 years ago, he told me how growing up with me, and he listed my autistic traits without us knowing yet that it was autism,
Wow.
that how these affected him. And of course, I was so devastated because, like any autistic person, you put your heart and soul and everything into, like, okay, you're going to be a mom, you're going to be a mom. You're going to be a professor. You're going to be a professor. The thing is that I didn't know what neurotypical mothers knew. They had the rule book about what a mother does, whether it's being the school mom, that wasn't going to work. So here in the United States, there's a school mom that comes to the parties, that makes the cupcakes, that arranges all the, you know, that weren't me. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was good at pretending I knew what I was doing. But my oldest son, who ended up studying traumatology and became a counselor, ended up studying his own growing up and how it impacted him. And he decided to tell this highly sensitive autistic
Yeah.
person in just like bomb, 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 bomb. And MJ, I was on the floor weeping. I couldn't believe that I was such a failure because everything is black and white to me. And he was just sharing. And at the end of him sharing, he was like, Mom, I love you. I know you love me. I've always known you've loved me. I don't have any problem with my self-esteem, but you just couldn't do some of these things. And that's what led me to get my assessment because I I knew that there was something with me.
Mm.
I had been misdiagnosed years before with OCD. And when I got assessed this time, she said, no, that all those rituals and systems and that falls under your autism. So sometimes there's comorbidity, but it wasn't that for me. So all that to say, I've had a lot of grace with my vocation that came extremely natural to me and still does.
Mm.
And my boys made it to adulthood. They're married, they're fathers, they love us. Thank God that we had David and that they were boys. And, they sort of were mentored more at a
Mm.
certain age by him. But I didn't do the best with everything that they needed. And I have to live with that. I couldn't not be autistic for them. I
Yeah,
have to let that be okay.
that's heavy.
Oh, MJ. The
Yeah,
hardest thing that ever happened to me was when my son told me how he was affected.
yeah.
But it pushed me into getting assessed.
And do you think your son had that realization that you're probably autistic before he gave you all that information?
No,
Okay.
he didn't. No, none of us really, because we women, first of all, we don't present
No.
the way the typical autistic person does. I'm good at figuring out what other people want and delivering that, right? So vocationally, I was so successful. And I just think none of us really, there wasn't, until the YouTube community started to share their lived experience and advocate for us, none of this was going on until fairly recently,
Yeah.
really like the last 5 years. None of that was going on. I, as a psychologist, had no idea that I was autistic. I just thought I was like, man, I'm the weirdest person that I know. But yeah, yeah. So it was like such an epiphany for all of us. And it's good. We all know now, and we're all sort of recovering from not knowing.
Yeah, it is. There is a lot of recovering, like you say, that's a good word to use because you have to have so much grace. Like you say, you've had grace within your working life. You need to have grace for yourself, don't you? For not knowing what you didn't know.
And
And
even if we knew, I couldn't be different.
no,
At least everybody would have understood. Why is mom eating the same things every day? Why is
yeah,
mom doing the same exact things every day? Why is mom sort of different in social situations?
mm,
At least we were like, oh, that's autism. But back then, autism was considered such a severe condition, right? Severe condition. It was just not on the radar yet, until Temple Grandin really sort of changed things and shone a spotlight on, that there are differences for women.
yeah, and there's starting to be a lot more women representations in media coming out now. Like you say, there's lots of availability on YouTube for people sharing their personal stories, but I can see like films and series coming out with female autistic characters, and this is really exciting. And it's new, but I'm so here for that because we
Yeah.
need to have our representation. We need
Yeah.
to shift how people perceive and understand autism because for women it is a lot more of what's going on inside in such a turmoil of trying to figure life out
Yeah.
while acting like everyone else around us and doing what's expected of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to our last question.
Okay.
Um, what is one of the most commonly hard things about autism? That's quite a good coming on to that question actually. That you wish wasn't such a stereotype.
Yeah. And I think we just alluded to it. First of
Yeah.
all, the diagnostic manual that is used in the field says that it calls it autistic spectrum disorder.
Mm,
It is considered a mental illness, autism, right? Why not autism spectrum condition or,
right.
a different processing system? I think that fact that people consider it because they use the nomenclature of the diagnostic manual, if people consider it a mental illness, then they think of us as mentally ill.
Yeah.
And that just sets my teeth on edge. It makes me so mad. And that's my field. So I think it's hard enough being different in this world, but must we be considered mentally ill,
Mm,
have some kind of disorder, right? Instead of a different processing system. So I think, though, at the same time, it's easy for people if we stopped masking completely, right? And we were, just really out there with everything about the way that we are, people would really judge us. People would think that we're mentally ill, you know? And that's why we don't. That's why we're careful with who we share it with, because we don't trust people with our lived experience, that they're going to be gentle and compassionate and see us as human.
right.
And so that's something that has to really change.
Mm, yeah. I had a thought there and I've lost it.
Oh, find it again. I could tell that you were thinking something.
It's gonna come back.
It'll come back. But I think that we're just like everyone else. We want to be loved and accepted and seen and belong. And the thing is that the more that people come to know what it's like to be autistic and they see the way we are, we're not stupid. The less likely, it's not much different than junior high, unfortunately. And we've learned from junior high. Did they call it junior high in the UK?
Not in Scotland.
I mean, in Scotland?
Oh,
What do they call that? What do they call like when you're in school between seventh and ninth grade?
yeah, so
Hell. They call it hell, is what it is.
it's even different in England. I was talking to a friend recently. It's a different system in England than it is to Scotland, and we're such a small island. But in Scotland, we have primary school, which is age 5 up to maybe 11, and then high school from age 11 up till 17, 18.
Okay, so we have middle school in between,
Yeah.
which was called junior high when I was growing up. And you know what? If you sit around at any given place socially and you start hearing people talking about other people and, judging other people. It really hasn't changed that much.
Yeah.
It's wonderful that we have YouTube communities because we have to have a place where we can take off our masks and not be judged.
Yeah. And it is very hard to be on a platform like social media where anyone can find you and you just have no idea who's clicking on and watching your videos and whether they're going to support what you say or just completely trash what you say. So you have to be vulnerable, and that's quite scary when that's a place where you're trying to unmask and show the real you. I have friends who have had mean comments and trolls and people just saying you're not autistic, and yeah, it's hard to be vulnerable.
You're doing really great. I mean, I was encouraged to
Yeah,
start, and I think that well, for one, I'm still working clinically and I'm still teaching, and I started to feel overwhelmed
yeah.
with doing it.
And you might come back. It might just be a season that you're not doing your channel for. So, you can
Right,
just see how what pans out.
right.
Um, I'm gonna just ask you if people want to find you, you do counseling, and if people want to find you, do you have a website or something
I
that can reach you at?
I do. I have a website and an email. So my website is www.drliasosin.com. And my email is lssosin@gmail.com.
Brilliant. I will put that in the description below as well for anyone who is
Good.
looking to
Oh,
connect with Liesl.
that
Um,
would be.
Liesl, thank you so much for being with me today and having this chat. I really enjoyed your company. And yeah, just I hope that everyone who's tuned into this video can relate and appreciate what you have shared with us today.
Thank you so much, MJ. What a privilege.
Thank you.